What if the debt crisis, the rise of crypto, and the legend of Satoshi Nakamoto were never separate stories? What if every arm of power, Treasury, the Fed, even intelligence agencies, has been steering us toward one outcome? A financial system where money isn't printed, it's programmed. Because when your national debt hits 38 trillion, you don't pay it back, you rewrite the code. The United States doesn't want to cancel debt. It wants to digitize it, to move it somewhere new, where losses can hide inside algorithms and resets look like innovation. You thought blockchain was built to free people from governments. But what if it's the government's final invention, their escape hatch from collapse? Over the next few minutes, we're going to pull the curtain on how the debt machine actually works, how inflation is a tool, not an accident, and how tokenization could make a $38 trillion IOU disappear without paying a cent. Before you scroll, here's why this matters right now. Every loan, every bond, every swipe of your credit card is connected to the same engine, government debt. When that engine stalls, everything you own, savings, job, business, shakes with it. Understanding this isn't theory, it's self-defense. If you stay for the next few minutes, you'll see exactly how inflation quietly transfers wealth from citizens to the state, and you'll never read a headline the same way again. This is FinTech Decrypt. Every few months, Congress performs the same drama. Should we raise the debt ceiling? The headlines make it sound like a cliffhanger, but spoiler alert, they always raise it.
But at the end of the day, there's only one solution to this problem, and that is Congress. Whatever else may happen will happen, but Congress really needs to raise the debt ceiling. That's the only way out, in a timely way that allows us to pay all of our bills when and as due.
Why? Because the US government doesn't run on income. It runs on borrowing.
But is the national debt a danger to the economy, in your view?
In the long run, the U.S. is on an unsustainable fiscal path. The U.S. federal government's on an unsustainable fiscal path.
Every time it spends more than it earns, it issues IOUs, treasury bonds, that promise future repayment with interest. Now here's the trick. Those IOUs are bought by banks, pension funds, even other countries. The buyers get paid back in dollars the government can create whenever it wants. So the US borrows money in a currency it controls. It's like owing your neighbor $100 but owning the printer that makes the money. That's why default isn't the real risk. Inflation is. Because every time new money enters the system, the value of every old dollar slips just a little bit. And that's how the debt gets paid. Not with new taxes, but through invisible taxation. Your cost of living goes up, your paycheck buys less, and the difference quietly covers yesterday's bills. Think of it like this. If the government owes $1 trillion and inflation runs 10%, that trillion is suddenly worth 10% less in real terms. Debt reduced, not by honesty, but by erosion. You don't see a vote, a law, or a policy change. You just feel it every time you fill your gas tank, buy groceries, or try to save. That's why inflation isn't an accident. It's the operating system. And when the numbers get too big to hide, that's when they'll need something new. A digital system that can shift value faster, blur the numbers, and keep the illusion going. The US now spends more on interest payments than on national defense. More money on the past than the future. When interest becomes the largest bill in the world, the only escape left is to change what money means. Let's go one level deeper, because this is the part no one ever explains. You probably imagine the government printing bills and shipping them to banks. But that's not how most money comes into existence. Here's what really happens. You walk into a bank to take out a loan for a car or a home. The bank checks your credit, and when it approves you, it doesn't pull cash out of a vault. It creates the money by typing it into your account. That number is new money, conjured from your promise to pay it back. Your debt became the bank's asset, and your deposit became the bank's liability. Multiply that by every mortgage, business loan, and credit card in the country, and you get the modern money supply. Roughly 90% of all US money exists only as bank deposits, created through lending. That means money is born with debt attached. When loans are repaid, that money disappears from circulation. If everyone paid off their debts tomorrow, most of the money would vanish, and the economy would collapse. The US doesn't owe trillions because of bad math, it owes trillions because that's how money exists. Debt is not a bug in the system, it's the system. Okay, now that you see how debt and money are joined at the hip, here's the next question. What happens when the IOUs grow faster than the system can hide them? You innovate. When spreadsheets can't handle the numbers, you build new software, and that's what's happening right now. The new system doesn't erase debt, it digitizes it. The buzzwords you keep hearing, blockchain, tokenization, stablecoins, CBDCs, are not just trends, they're infrastructure. Tokenization simply means taking real-world assets, things like treasury bonds, mortgages, or even corporate debt, and converting them into digital tokens that can move instantly on a blockchain. As of today, several $1 trillion worth of assets are already in early pilot programs.
We're not spending enough time talking about how quickly we're going to tokenize every financial asset.
Roughly $7 billion worth of US treasuries have been tokenized by funds like Franklin Templeton's on-chain US government money fund, BlackRock's BUIDL fund, and projects running on Ripple's and Stellar's networks. It's small now, but it's proof of concept. Tokenized debt can move across borders 24/7, clear in seconds, and be embedded directly into new forms of money, stablecoins, digital dollars, or central bank tokens. You might think that sounds efficient. It is. But it also means that the same government that borrowed too much can now circulate that debt globally in real time, dressing it up as liquidity, not liability. Picture it. The US Treasury issues $1 trillion in digital bonds. Those bonds back stablecoins. Those stablecoins become payment rails, and the world suddenly holds US debt as digital cash. Debt becomes currency. Currency becomes code. Code becomes control. They told you crypto would free you from the system. What if it was always the prototype for the next system? Because when a nation can't pay its debts, it doesn't default, it rebrands. Now that you understand how debt can be digitized, the question is, who moves it? The answer isn't politicians. It's the engineers building the next layer of financial plumbing. The XRP ledger is an open-source blockchain designed for one thing: speed and liquidity. It's decentralized, no single company owns or runs it. But there is a company called Ripple, a US fintech that builds software to help banks and payment firms use the XRP ledger for instant settlement. Ripple doesn't control XRP, it leverages it. Through this network, value moves across borders in seconds, for a fraction of a cent, with full transparency. In 2025, Ripple even applied for a US national trust bank charter, putting itself under direct federal oversight. That's not rebellion, that's integration. And once a system like that exists, governments don't need to build their own rails for tokenized bonds, treasuries, or stablecoins. They can simply plug in. Think about that. The same rails that move remittances and corporate payments can move tokenized debt instantly, globally, invisibly. If the US wants to spread its liabilities around the world without calling them debt, it doesn't need a new currency. It just needs a network. You can already see the pieces forming. Banks in Europe and Asia using Ripple's software, asset managers experimenting with tokenized treasuries, regulators drafting new frameworks for real-time settlement. The point isn't that one company will run the world's money. It's that the world is quietly upgrading to rails that can move any kind of value instantly. When that happens, debt, cash, and assets start to blur. Liquidity hides the difference. Every empire has faced the same problem: debt that grows faster than income. And every empire has used the same solution: devaluation. Not by announcing it, by engineering it. Here's the quiet truth. A country doesn't have to default if it can make its money worth less. Pay back $1 trillion with dollars that buy 10% less, and the real debt just shrank by 100 billion. That's why inflation isn't always treated as a crisis. It's the lubricant that keeps the debt machine moving. It melts what can't be repaid. But the 21st century version goes further. With digital currencies, value itself can be managed in real time. Imagine a system where the money in circulation can expire or lose a fraction of its value after a set date, programmed, not voted. That's not science fiction. Central bank digital currency pilots in China, Europe, and the Bahamas already test those features. That's the new form of devaluation. Not through inflation headlines, but through code. A world where economic policy can be updated like software patches. Devaluation used to take years. Now it can happen in seconds, in code you'll never see. The question is whether we understand the rules of this new game before we start playing. In every financial system, there's something more valuable than money itself. Not gold, not crypto, not even debt. Just belief that tomorrow will still honor what you hold today. When that belief fades, the numbers stop mattering. Markets don't crash because math breaks. They crash because trust evaporates. That's why the messaging never stops. Every press release, every talking head, every green arrow on your app, all there to keep one truth alive: the system works. Confidence is currency. It's invisible, but it's the most valuable asset in the world. And here's the real twist. The new digital system doesn't solve the problem, it streamlines it. Digital money doesn't erase debt, it rebrands it. The tokens might hold real value, but the system that moves them still runs on promises, not productivity. Until those promises are backed by creation, not credit, the math doesn't change. Only the interface does. Fiat was the paper car. Crypto is the electric car. But if both are still speeding down the same debt-based highway, the destination hasn't changed, just the motor. And here's where it gets subtle. When money becomes programmable, belief becomes programmable too. Algorithms can smooth volatility, freeze withdrawals, even pause panic with a system update. You won't see crashes anymore, just maintenance windows. That's the new form of stability, controlled confidence. They don't have to rebuild trust. They just have to code it well enough that you never notice it. Step back from the US for a moment and look at the planet. Every nation faces the same equation: rising debt, aging populations, slowing productivity. The tools might differ, but the math is identical. China's testing the digital yuan. The European Central Bank is piloting a digital euro. Even small economies, Nigeria, the Bahamas, the Caribbean, already run central bank tokens. The narrative isn't East versus West anymore. It's old system versus new ledger. And the deeper truth? Every country that digitizes its currency gains two things: speed and control. The same control that once belonged to printing presses now lives in software. Even rival powers see the same opportunity. In 2024, Russian presidential advisor Anton Kobyakov said, "The US will push the world into the crypto cloud to erase its $35 trillion debt and start from scratch."
Они очень хотят решить проблему снижения доверия к доллару. США, как это было и в 30-е, и в 70-е годы, будут решать свои финансовые проблемы за счет всего мира, загоняя всех куда? В криптовалютное облако. Со временем, когда часть госдолга США будет размещена в стейблкоинах, США обесценит этот долг. Еще раз простыми словами, у них сейчас валютный 35-триллионный долг, они его загоняют в крипту, в облако, обесценивают и начинают с нуля.
Whether that's prophecy or politics, the point stands. The next monetary era won't be printed. It'll be coded. The future of debt isn't default. It's migration, from paper to protocol. This isn't about who's winning or losing. It's about who understands the upgrade. The question isn't if the world goes digital, it's what values we bring with us when it does. We've seen how the system evolves, from paper to credit to code. But this isn't the end of money. It's the beginning of ownership. XRP, Bitcoin, and Stellar are tools. Tools that let us hold value directly, move it freely, and participate in the next financial era on our own terms. The old world was built on trust in institutions. The new one will be built on verifiable truth. And that's what changes everything. Because for the first time in history, you can hold a piece of the infrastructure, not just the output. You can be part of the liquidity, not trapped inside it. Owning assets like XRP isn't gambling on hype, it's positioning for a system that's already being built. A system where settlement happens in seconds, value moves without permission, and you actually control the keys. That's the real hedge, not against governments, but against dependence. If you've watched this far, you understand the story. The system isn't collapsing, it's upgrading. You can watch it happen from the sidelines. Or you can learn the rails, hold your own keys, and stand ready for the age of on-chain value. The future won't wait, but it will reward those who understand it first.